The universe is vast beyond imagination, a canvas stretching farther than the eye, or even the most powerful telescope, can perceive. Every night, countless points of light twinkle in the darkness, each a sun like our own, each potentially encircled by worlds we cannot yet see. Yet for all this apparent fullness, the cosmos feels both intimate and terrifyingly empty, a paradox that has haunted human thought for millennia. We gaze upward and wonder, if this is all there is, if nothing exists outside reality itself, then what is pushing the fabric of everything outward, expanding the very space we inhabit? Our journey begins at the edge of perception, where light from the farthest galaxies travels for billions of years just to reach us, carrying whispers from the dawn of time. These ancient photons arrive quietly but carry profound messages. The universe is growing, stretching, and changing in ways that defy simple explanation. In some sense, the cosmos behaves like a living organism, evolving in silence, yet the forces behind its growth remain invisible, almost ghostly. This unseen expansion challenges everything we think we know about existence. It asks questions that feel absurdly simple and maddeningly complex at the same time. How can space itself grow, and what, if anything, is driving it? Imagine standing on a cliff and watching a fog roll outward in every direction, invisible yet tangible in its movement. This is how astronomers describe the expansion of the universe, not as objects moving through space, but as space itself stretching, carrying galaxies along like driftwood on an immense, unseen current. Unlike anything we experience in daily life, this expansion has no edge and no center, defying intuitive understanding. It is as though reality itself is breathing, and we are witnesses to a cosmic exhale that has continued since the universe's birth. From the earliest civilizations to modern science, humans have tried to make sense of the heavens. Ancient stargazers saw patterns, telling stories of gods and monsters to explain the lights above. Modern astronomers use equations and satellites, yet even with advanced technology, the same fundamental questions persist. The universe's expansion is measurable, observable, undeniable, but its source remains hidden. We know what is happening, but we cannot fully explain why. The thrill, the tension, and the mystery lie precisely in that gap between observation and understanding. As we embark on this journey, we will confront extremes: the unimaginably small world of quantum fluctuations and the immeasurably vast stretches of intergalactic voids. We will wrestle with forces that are both familiar, like gravity, and completely alien, like dark energy, which seems to exert influence without substance. We will explore not only the physical dimensions of reality but also the philosophical implications. What does it mean if nothing exists beyond reality? Can there be a cause or reason for expansion in a universe without anything outside it? Even as we look outward into the cosmos, we are forced to look inward, into the human mind itself, where imagination struggles to keep pace with reality. The question of expansion is more than scientific. It is existential. Each new discovery, each faint signal from the depths of space, challenges our understanding of who we are and our place in this expanding tapestry. There is awe, but also a subtle fear. The universe is indifferent, vast, and incomprehensible, yet we are compelled to understand it. This cinematic journey will weave together the narrative of discovery, the poetry of observation, and the philosophical questions that arise when we confront the unknown. From the twinkling stars of our night sky to the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, we will explore the forces that shape reality itself. Along the way, we will encounter the tension between what we know and what we cannot know, between the visible and the invisible, between the finite limits of human understanding and the infinite expanse that surrounds us. The universe's expansion is not merely a scientific fact. It is a mystery that invites both contemplation and imagination. As we peer into the depths of space, following the trails of ancient light and cosmic radiation, we are drawn into a story that transcends mere measurement. It is a story of beginnings and endings, of the known and the unknowable, of the delicate dance between existence and emptiness. Every galaxy moving away, every photon arriving after billions of years, is a reminder that we are part of a dynamic, ever-changing cosmos. And yet, even as we observe and calculate, the question lingers. If there is nothing beyond reality itself, then what is driving this expansion? Is it a property of space, inherent and self-sustaining, or is there some hidden force, some aspect of the cosmos still beyond our comprehension? The journey to uncover this truth will take us to the edges of physics and philosophy alike, blending awe-inspiring imagery with deep, provocative questions. As our exploration begins, we are both small and significant. Small in the vastness of the universe, yet significant in our ability to perceive, to question, and to imagine. This first step is a dive into mystery, a cinematic unfolding of a question as ancient as humanity and as contemporary as the latest scientific data. If nothing exists outside reality, then what is pushing it ever outward? In the chapters ahead, we will confront answers, partial and speculative, and embrace the tension between knowledge and wonder, guiding the viewer through an 18,000-word journey across space, time, and thought itself. The universe is alive in its motion, silent in its expansion, and relentless in its challenge to human comprehension. We are on the precipice of understanding, gazing into the abyss with both fear and curiosity. From the smallest quark to the largest galaxy cluster, from the earliest cosmic whispers to the accelerating expansion of today, we are witnesses to a story both magnificent and elusive. The adventure begins here, at the edge of reality, where observation meets imagination, and where the first question opens the doorway to the unknown. The concept of reality is deceptively simple. At first glance, reality appears as the world we see, touch, and experience. The solidity of the ground beneath our feet, the warmth of sunlight on our skin, the colors of a sunset fading into night. Yet beneath this everyday perception lies a deeper, more intricate fabric, one that scientists and philosophers have grappled with for centuries. What is real? Is it only what we can measure and observe, or is there more, hidden beneath layers of abstraction, mathematics, and thought experiments that challenge intuition? The line between perception and truth blurs as we begin to investigate the very essence of existence. Reality, in the classical sense, was once thought to be absolute and unchanging. Philosophers like Aristotle argued for a cosmos governed by clear laws, predictable and orderly. Objects existed in space, time flowed steadily, and cause and effect dictated the rhythm of life. This framework gave humanity a comforting sense of control, a notion that if we observed carefully enough, we could understand and predict the universe. But as science advanced, cracks appeared in this seemingly solid foundation. Discoveries in physics, from the strange behavior of light to the peculiarities of subatomic particles, revealed a universe far stranger than classical reasoning could account for. The shift began with the exploration of the very small. Quantum mechanics showed that particles do not have definite positions or velocities until measured, that uncertainty is not a flaw in observation but a fundamental property of reality itself. Electrons can exist in multiple places at once, light behaves as both particle and wave, and probabilities replace certainties. These revelations challenged our understanding of existence, suggesting that reality is not fixed, but probabilistic and layered. What we perceive may be only one version of countless possibilities, a shadow of a deeper truth that remains hidden until observed. At the cosmic scale, relativity introduced another layer of complexity. Space and time are not fixed arenas where events unfold, but dynamic entities, warped and stretched by mass and energy. Time itself flows differently depending on velocity and gravity, turning the intuitive march of seconds and hours into a relative experience. The universe we thought was uniform and absolute suddenly became a landscape of warping spacetime, where reality depends not only on location but also on motion and perspective. The solid, intuitive world of our senses gives way to a cosmos that is fluid, flexible, and profoundly counterintuitive. These scientific revelations are not merely abstract. They shape the way we interpret everything around us. The boundaries of reality are no longer simply defined by perception but by the frameworks we use to understand the cosmos. Experiments, equations, and observations extend our senses, revealing aspects of the universe that our eyes and intuition cannot detect. Telescopes reach back billions of years in time, particle accelerators probe distances smaller than atoms, and satellites map invisible cosmic radiation. Each new discovery expands the definition of reality, forcing us to reconcile what we know with what we cannot yet grasp. Philosophical inquiry complements scientific exploration by probing questions that measurement alone cannot answer. If reality is probabilistic, fluid, and relative, what does that imply for existence itself? Are we participants in a universe that defines itself only when observed, or is there an underlying structure independent of perception? These questions hover at the intersection of science and philosophy, inviting both wonder and unease. By juxtaposing human perception with cosmic complexity, we begin to see reality not as a fixed stage, but as a dynamic interplay of forces, probabilities, and perspectives. This tension between the familiar and the strange, between the observable and the hidden, creates the fertile ground for curiosity. Every time we refine our instruments or extend our theoretical frameworks, reality shifts slightly, revealing layers previously unseen. The world that seemed tangible and certain becomes a mosaic of mysteries: waves and particles, curves and probabilities, emptiness and hidden energy. This section lays the foundation for our journey, highlighting the contrast between what we experience directly and the vast, enigmatic structures that define the universe at its most fundamental level. By confronting the limits of perception, we also confront the limits of understanding. Human intuition evolved to navigate everyday life, not to comprehend a universe expanding at unimaginable scales or governed by quantum uncertainty. The tools of mathematics, observation, and reason extend our reach, but they also reveal how provisional our grasp of reality truly is. With each new revelation, we are reminded that reality is not a fixed backdrop but a dynamic, evolving stage, one that challenges us to question everything we take for granted. As we continue this exploration, it is essential to maintain a sense of both humility and wonder. The universe does not yield its secrets easily. Each discovery answers some questions while raising many more. Reality as we perceive it is only a doorway into deeper mysteries, complex, astonishing, and often counterintuitive. By expanding our understanding beyond immediate perception, we begin to see the universe as a layered, interconnected whole, where every observation, every measurement, and every thought contributes to a richer, more profound comprehension of existence itself. In embracing this complexity, we prepare to confront the central puzzle of our journey. If nothing exists outside reality, what drives the expansion of the cosmos? By understanding the nature of reality, we set the stage for the next step, observing the universe itself, tracing its growth across billions of years, and exploring the forces that propel it into the unknown. This journey promises to be both intellectually rigorous and emotionally resonant, blending the grandeur of cosmic discovery with the philosophical questions that have haunted humanity for centuries. The path forward requires curiosity, imagination, and a willingness to embrace the paradoxes of existence, as we seek to illuminate the hidden mechanisms shaping the universe and ultimately reality itself. The act of observing the universe is both a triumph of human ingenuity and a humbling confrontation with our own limitations. From the earliest stargazers who traced the motion of planets across the night sky to modern astronomers using sophisticated instruments, humanity has always sought to measure, map, and understand the cosmos. Yet the universe does not reveal itself easily. Light from distant galaxies travels for billions of years, carrying encoded stories of the past, stories that must be carefully decoded with tools that extend far beyond our natural senses. Observation becomes not just a scientific endeavor, but a cinematic journey into the unknown, where each signal, each photon, is a messenger from the depths of reality. To truly perceive the universe, we must first confront the challenge of scale. The distances are incomprehensible, measured in light years, with a single galaxy containing hundreds of billions of stars. Light from these stars begins its journey long before Earth even existed, and by the time it reaches us, it is a faint whisper of ancient events. Telescopes like Hubble and the newly operational James Webb Space Telescope act as time machines, capturing these whispers and allowing us to reconstruct the story of cosmic evolution. In the darkness of space, these instruments transform points of light into rich narratives, revealing the formation of galaxies, the birth of stars, and the subtle shifts in the cosmic web that traces the structure of the universe. But observation is not merely about collecting light. It is about interpreting signals that are often barely perceptible. Cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, provides a snapshot of the universe when it was less than 400,000 years old. Detecting it requires instruments of extraordinary sensitivity, capable of distinguishing this faint echo from the cacophony of electromagnetic noise surrounding us. Each measurement demands meticulous care, with scientists cross-referencing data, calibrating instruments, and refining techniques to ensure that what we see is a true reflection of reality and not an artifact of our tools. In this meticulous process, observation becomes an art as much as a science, requiring intuition, creativity, and a profound respect for the cosmos' subtlety. Through these observations, patterns begin to emerge. Galaxies recede from one another, stretching the fabric of space and providing the first evidence that the universe is expanding. The redshift of distant galaxies, the stretching of light toward longer wavelengths, tells a story that is both poetic and profound. The cosmos is not static but dynamic, evolving over time. Yet each discovery raises new questions. Why is the universe expanding at the rate it is? What unseen forces govern this acceleration? Observation offers clues but does not provide all the answers, maintaining a delicate tension between knowledge and mystery that fuels scientific inquiry and philosophical reflection alike. Modern observational techniques are diverse and complementary. Optical telescopes capture visible light, revealing the shapes and structures of galaxies. Radio telescopes pick up long wavelength signals, uncovering hidden clouds of gas and the remnants of cataclysmic events. X-ray observatories detect the most energetic phenomena, from supernovae to the glowing edges of black holes. Each wavelength opens a new window onto reality, exposing features invisible to human eyes and allowing us to perceive a universe more complex and wondrous than ever imagined. By combining these observations, astronomers can construct a multi-layered map of the cosmos, each layer providing a different perspective, each revealing unique insights into the mechanisms driving expansion. Yet even with these incredible instruments, we are limited by what we can detect. Some regions lie beyond the observable horizon, forever inaccessible to our probes. The universe may contain phenomena entirely invisible to current technology, forces and structures that remain hidden, influencing the cosmos in ways we cannot yet comprehend. This limitation is not a flaw, but a profound reminder of the vastness and mystery of reality. Every measurement, every observation, is both an achievement and an invitation, a call to explore further, to refine our tools, and to stretch the boundaries of human understanding. The process of observation also forces us to confront the nature of measurement itself. Quantum effects, relativistic distortions, and cosmic noise all complicate our efforts to perceive the universe accurately. What we see is always filtered through layers of instrumentation, interpretation, and theory. Reality is never presented in pure form. It must be inferred, reconstructed from the signals that reach us. In this interplay between detection and understanding, the universe becomes a dialogue, a conversation across space and time between the cosmos and human curiosity. Each discovery deepens the mystery, as new layers of complexity emerge and old assumptions are challenged. Observation is both a scientific method and a philosophical exercise. By peering into the depths of space, we confront questions that extend beyond numbers and equations. We ask what it means to exist in a universe so vast, so intricate, and so unknowable. We reflect on our own position within this expanding reality, our role as observers capable of deciphering the cosmos while simultaneously being swept along by its silent growth. The act of observing is therefore a bridge between empirical study and existential contemplation, linking the mechanics of expansion with the deeper implications for understanding reality itself. From distant supernovae illuminating the death throes of massive stars to the delicate dance of binary systems orbiting each other across light years, observation provides both spectacle and insight. Each captured image and each spectrum analyzed contributes to a narrative that unfolds over billions of years, revealing the processes that shape galaxies, stars, and the cosmic web. These observations allow scientists to model the universe's past, understand its present, and predict its future, all while acknowledging the inherent uncertainties that define the edge of knowledge. In this exploration, the observer becomes part of the story. Our instruments, our interpretations, and our theories are extensions of human curiosity, striving to make sense of phenomena that dwarf comprehension. Observation transforms abstract concepts into tangible insights, yet it also highlights the limits of perception. Every glimpse of the cosmos reminds us that while we have made extraordinary progress in understanding the universe, its vastness, complexity, and mystery remain profoundly humbling. We are witnesses to an expanding reality, piecing together its story one photon at a time, and in doing so, we come face to face with questions that challenge both science and philosophy. Through observation, the universe communicates in a language of light, motion, and energy. The cosmic dance of galaxies, the silent drift of stars, and the faint signals from the edge of time offer clues about the forces driving expansion. By carefully listening, measuring, and interpreting, we begin to discern patterns, identify anomalies, and glimpse the mechanisms underlying the universe's growth. Yet each answer uncovers new questions, ensuring that observation remains a journey without end, a cinematic odyssey through space, time, and the very nature of reality itself. The discovery of the universe's expansion transformed our understanding of reality, shattering centuries of assumptions about a static cosmos. For millennia, humans believed the night sky was fixed and eternal, a celestial stage where stars and planets moved in predictable patterns. This worldview began to change in the early 20th century, when astronomers like Edwin Hubble meticulously measured the distances to galaxies and observed a phenomenon that would revolutionize cosmology. Through careful observation and precise measurement, they found that galaxies were not merely scattered across space, they were moving away from us, and, remarkably, the farther a galaxy was, the faster it appeared to recede. This simple but profound observation suggested that space itself was expanding, stretching the universe like an inflating balloon, and it opened the door to questions that remain at the forefront of modern science. Hubble's observations were both elegant and unsettling. By measuring the redshift of light emitted by distant galaxies, the stretching of light to longer, redder wavelengths as objects move away, he provided tangible evidence that the universe was dynamic, not static. The notion that the cosmos had a beginning and was in motion challenged not only scientific models but also philosophical and cultural conceptions of time and eternity. Imagine looking at a distant galaxy through a telescope and realizing that the light you see left that galaxy millions or even billions of years ago. You are seeing the past unfold before your eyes, witnessing events that occurred long before Earth or humanity existed. This temporal dislocation emphasizes both the vastness of space and the intimate connection between observation and understanding. The expanding universe also introduced a profound sense of scale. Galaxies are not moving through a pre-existing void, rather, space itself is stretching, carrying clusters of stars along with it. Unlike anything encountered in everyday experience, this expansion has no center and no edge, challenging intuition at its core. Every point in space is receding from every other point, creating a homogeneous but dynamically growing cosmos. The farther away a galaxy is, the faster it appears to move, a relationship that is mathematically precise and universally applicable. This principle, now known as Hubble's law, provides a framework for understanding the large-scale structure of the universe and allows scientists to estimate the age of cosmic expansion, tracing it back to the earliest moments of creation. The historical context of this discovery adds to its cinematic allure. Hubble, working at Mount Wilson Observatory in the 1920s, peered through the Hooker telescope, the largest of its time, with meticulous patience and unwavering curiosity. Night after night, he measured the brightness and movement of celestial objects, slowly unraveling the hidden choreography of galaxies. His work built upon the theoretical insights of earlier physicists and mathematicians, including Albert Einstein, whose general theory of relativity had laid the mathematical foundation for an evolving cosmos. The interplay between observation and theory created a narrative tension that drives scientific discovery. Prediction meets evidence, assumption meets reality, and the universe reveals its secrets in fragments that require both intuition and rigor to interpret. The concept of cosmic expansion is not merely abstract. It has tangible, observable consequences. The stretching of space affects the light we receive from distant galaxies, the distribution of matter across cosmic scales, and the formation of large-scale structures like galaxy clusters and cosmic filaments. These effects are not static snapshots but dynamic processes that continue to shape the universe. By studying patterns in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang, scientists can reconstruct the universe's early conditions, seeing how tiny fluctuations in density grew into the complex structures we observe today. Every observation reinforces the notion that expansion is an ongoing process, a silent, continuous unfolding of reality itself. This section also emphasizes contrast, highlighting the tension between predictability and mystery. While Hubble's law provides a reliable framework for understanding recession velocities, the underlying cause of expansion remains elusive. Gravity should, in principle, slow the growth of the universe, yet observations reveal that not only does expansion continue, it is accelerating. This unexpected acceleration raises profound questions, pointing toward phenomena that cannot yet be directly observed, such as dark energy. The contrast between what is measurable and what remains hidden creates both intellectual suspense and emotional engagement, pulling viewers deeper into the narrative. Visualizing cosmic expansion offers a cinematic experience unlike any other. Imagine a three-dimensional tapestry of galaxies drifting apart, filaments of matter stretching across unimaginable distances, and voids expanding in silent darkness. Light from distant stars bends and shifts, creating a symphony of color and motion that is both mesmerizing and disorienting. This visual narrative reinforces the conceptual understanding, making abstract physics tangible through imagery that conveys scale, motion, and the inexorable passage of time. The expansion of space is not just a scientific fact. It is a story of cosmic motion that can be felt emotionally as well as intellectually. The expanding universe also invites philosophical reflection. If space itself is stretching, if every galaxy is receding from every other, what does this say about human perspective and perception? We are not at the center, nor is any location privileged. The universe is indifferent, vast, and dynamic, unfolding on scales that dwarf comprehension. Yet within this immensity, human observation becomes a profound act of connection, bridging the gap between the infinitesimal and the infinite. Each measurement, each calculation, is a thread linking our understanding to the grand tapestry of reality. The narrative of cosmic expansion continues into the modern era. Advanced instruments, from space-based telescopes to deep sky surveys, have refined our understanding of Hubble's initial discovery. Observations confirm that galaxies are receding, that space is stretching, and that the universe is evolving according to discernible laws, even as new mysteries emerge. This continuity between past and present highlights the human journey of discovery, emphasizing patience, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. Each generation builds upon the previous, extending our perception and deepening the narrative of expansion. Ultimately, the story of the expanding universe is both scientific and cinematic, blending observation, theory, and imagination. It frames the cosmos as a dynamic entity, alive in its motion and silent in its growth. By tracing galaxies across space and time, by measuring the subtle redshifts of ancient light, we glimpse the forces shaping reality on the grandest scales. This section prepares the viewer to confront deeper mysteries, forces that drive acceleration, the role of unseen energy, and the profound questions that emerge when we consider what propels an entire universe outward. Cosmic expansion is not merely a fact to be known. It is a story to be experienced, a journey that begins with observation and leads inexorably into wonder, curiosity, and the search for the forces behind the universe's relentless growth. The universe is expanding, but the reason for its accelerated growth remains one of the most profound mysteries of modern science. Observations in the late 20th century revealed a surprising truth. Not only is the cosmos stretching, but the rate of this expansion is increasing over time. This counterintuitive discovery contradicted previous assumptions that gravity would gradually slow the outward motion of galaxies. Something unseen, something pervasive yet invisible, seemed to be pushing the universe apart, accelerating its expansion with relentless force. Scientists gave this mysterious agent a name: dark energy. The term itself evokes a sense of awe and unease, capturing the imagination while signaling the limits of human understanding. Dark energy is not an object or substance in the conventional sense. It does not clump like matter, nor does it interact with light in ways we can easily detect. Instead, it appears as a property of space itself, a subtle tension that permeates the cosmos and drives galaxies apart. Its effects are measurable, yet its essence remains elusive. To the human mind, accustomed to tangible cause and effect relationships, dark energy feels almost like a ghost, present everywhere, influencing everything, yet invisible to direct observation. Its discovery challenges our basic intuition about reality, forcing us to confront the possibility that the universe is governed by forces beyond our sensory perception and conceptual frameworks. The evidence for dark energy comes from multiple, independent lines of inquiry. Observations of distant supernovae revealed that these exploding stars appeared fainter than expected, suggesting that the space between them and Earth had expanded faster than anticipated during their journey. Cosmic microwave background measurements, mapping the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, provided corroborating evidence, showing subtle imprints consistent with accelerated expansion. Large-scale surveys of galaxies and the distribution of matter in the universe further confirmed the presence of a repulsive effect counteracting gravity. These converging lines of evidence created a scientific consensus that something extraordinary, something fundamentally new, was influencing the universe on the largest scales. The magnitude of dark energy is staggering. Estimates suggest it constitutes approximately 70% of the total energy content of the universe, dwarfing ordinary matter, dark matter, and radiation combined. It is the dominant factor shaping the cosmos, yet we know astonishingly little about it. This disparity between significance and understanding generates both excitement and unease. Humanity has probed the inner workings of atoms, harnessed the forces of electromagnetism, and explored the vast reaches of space, yet the primary driver of cosmic expansion remains an enigma. The very foundation of reality, it seems, is governed by something profoundly mysterious, invisible, and pervasive. Theoretical attempts to explain dark energy range from the cosmological constant proposed by Einstein, which treats it as an intrinsic property of space, to more exotic hypotheses involving dynamic fields or modifications of gravity. Each theory offers insights, yet none fully reconciles with observation, leaving gaps that tantalize physicists and philosophers alike. The tension between measurable effects and theoretical comprehension underscores the limits of human knowledge and the boundless complexity of the universe. Every model, equation, and simulation provides partial answers while opening new questions, creating a perpetual cycle of discovery and wonder. Dark energy also reshapes our perception of emptiness in the vacuum. In classical physics, a vacuum is simply nothing, a void devoid of matter and energy. Yet in modern cosmology, the vacuum is a dynamic entity, imbued with subtle energy that influences the expansion of space itself. Even where matter is sparse, the universe is never truly empty. Unseen forces ripple through the cosmic void, shaping the motion of galaxies and the evolution of large-scale structures. This reframing of emptiness challenges intuition and invites philosophical reflection. What does it mean for the universe to possess energy without substance? How does the unseen dominate the visible, guiding the trajectory of everything we can observe? The emotional impact of dark energy cannot be understated. It evokes awe because it reveals a universe far stranger and more complex than imagination alone can capture. It instills fear, or at least existential humility, as we recognize our smallness in a cosmos governed by invisible forces. It inspires curiosity, compelling us to develop new instruments, refine theories, and push the boundaries of observation in search of understanding. In cinematic terms, dark energy provides dramatic tension, a vast, unknowable presence that shapes the fate of the universe while remaining tantalizingly beyond reach, a silent force whose influence is absolute yet mysterious. Observing dark energy requires extraordinary precision. Astronomers analyze light from the farthest reaches of space, mapping subtle distortions caused by gravitational lensing, and charting the expansion history across billions of years. Instruments are tuned to detect minute differences in brightness, spectral shifts, and the large-scale clustering of galaxies. Each measurement is a delicate negotiation with the universe, teasing out faint signals from the noise, revealing patterns that hint at the underlying dynamics. Through this painstaking work, humanity gains glimpses of a force that is both omnipresent and elusive, tangible in its effects but intangible in essence. Dark energy also challenges our understanding of time and destiny. If its influence continues unchecked, it may drive the universe toward a future of endless acceleration, where galaxies drift beyond each other's observational reach, stars burn out, and cosmic structures fade into darkness. The expansion becomes a narrative not only of space but of time, stretching the future into an increasingly desolate and remote horizon. Yet even within this bleak possibility lies beauty and wonder. The universe is dynamic, alive in its motion, and responsive to fundamental forces that are just beginning to be understood. Philosophically, dark energy raises questions about causality, meaning, and the limits of comprehension. If reality is all that exists, and if dark energy is a property of reality itself, then the universe is, in some sense, self-propelling. Its expansion requires no external agent, no outside influence. It unfolds according to principles intrinsic to existence. This notion challenges deeply held intuitions about cause and effect, prompting reflection on the nature of the cosmos and humanity's place within it. The universe becomes a self-sustaining narrative, a story written in the language of energy, space, and time. Ultimately, the mystery of dark energy is both scientific and existential. It exemplifies the tension between what we can measure and what we can truly understand, between observation and explanation, between the tangible and the intangible. Its presence reminds us that the universe is far more complex than our senses and even our instruments can fully capture. As we continue to study its effects and refine our theories, dark energy remains a central enigma, a cinematic force driving the story of cosmic expansion and compelling us to confront the profound question at the heart of this journey. If nothing exists outside reality, what is pushing it ever outward? The early universe was a place of turbulence and ignition, a cosmic landscape where temperature and density were so extreme that the laws of physics barely resembled the ones we experience today. In the first fractions of a second after the Big Bang, everything unfolded at a pace so rapid that human language struggles to capture it. Space stretched violently, energy condensed into particles, and the earliest seeds of structure, the precursors of galaxies, stars, and planets, took shape in a sea of primordial chaos. To understand why the universe continues to expand today, scientists first turn their gaze backward, toward this incandescent beginning. The clues to cosmic acceleration lie buried within the earliest moments of existence, etched across the vast canvas of space and frozen into the ancient light that still surrounds us. As the universe cooled, the forces of nature separated into the distinct interactions we recognize now: gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear forces. Each divergence left a signature, an imprint encoded in the behavior of matter and radiation. In these signatures, physicists look for patterns that might explain the expansion we see today. The early cosmos was not uniform. It shimmered with tiny fluctuations, minute differences in temperature and density that later became the scaffolding for galaxies. These fluctuations were captured in the cosmic microwave background, a faint afterglow of the Big Bang that acts like a photograph of the universe when it was just 380,000 years old. This ancient light, stretched by billions of years of expansion, holds the first clues that something unexpected was destined to influence the cosmos on unimaginable scales. When scientists examined the cosmic microwave background, they discovered that the geometry of the universe was almost perfectly flat, like an enormous sheet extending beyond every horizon. A flat universe requires a precise balance between the amount of matter that pulls inward and the energy pushing outward. But something was missing. Ordinary matter and dark matter alone could not account for the required balancing force. The early universe was whispering a message through its geometry, hinting that a mysterious, repulsive energy was woven into the very fabric of space. Long before humanity identified dark energy, its presence was encoded in the geometry of the cosmos itself, a quiet signpost pointing toward the great mystery that would later emerge. The young cosmos was also shaped by something even more violent and dramatic, a brief era of exponential inflation. In a fraction of a second, the universe expanded faster than the speed of light, smoothing out irregularities and stretching space to an enormous scale. This period of inflation introduced the idea that space itself could behave like an active agent, capable of expanding without the need for external cause. Although inflation ended long ago, the very possibility that space can expand of its own accord set the stage for dark energy. It demonstrated that expansion is not merely a leftover echo of the Big Bang but a feature embedded deep within the physics of reality. Some theorists even suggest that the same mechanism behind inflation could be related to the dark energy driving today's acceleration, a faint but persistent force echoing across cosmic time. After inflation ended, the universe continued to cool, and matter slowly began to dominate. Galaxies formed from collapsing clouds of gas, and gravity became the primary sculptor of structure. For billions of years, the expansion slowed as matter pulled inward, resisting the momentum unleashed by the Big Bang. But evidence from distant supernovae reveals that the slowdown did not last. At some point roughly 5 billion years ago, the universe reversed course. Instead of slowing, expansion began to accelerate. This pivot is one of the most dramatic turning points in cosmic history. The universe shifted from a gravity-dominated era to one ruled by dark energy, marking the beginning of a new epoch. Understanding this cosmic turning point requires tracing the delicate interplay between matter, radiation, and the vacuum itself. One of the most intriguing aspects of the early universe is the concept of vacuum energy, the energy inherent in empty space. Quantum physics suggests that even the void is filled with fluctuating fields, popping particles in and out of existence in a restless dance. These fluctuations may have contributed to inflation, seeding the universe with the variations we see imprinted in the cosmic microwave background. If the vacuum has energy, and if that energy exerts a repulsive force, then the same principle could be responsible for today's accelerated expansion. The idea that empty space contains an invisible pressure challenges our intuition, yet it emerges naturally from quantum theory and cosmological observation. The vacuum is not silent. It exerts influence on the universe, shaping its evolution across billions of years. Scientists also explore the possibility that the early cosmos contained fields we have not yet detected, mysterious components of reality that evolved over time and eventually manifested as dark energy. These hypothetical fields may have been dormant or weak in the early universe but gradually grew in influence. Their behavior, imprinted subtly across cosmic history, may explain why dark energy became dominant only recently on cosmic timescales. Just as gravity shaped the universe during its youth, these fields may now guide the universe in its aging years, steering it into an era of rapid expansion. The transition from deceleration to acceleration remains one of the biggest puzzles in cosmology. It suggests that dark energy becomes more significant as matter becomes more diluted. In the early universe, matter was dense and powerful, dominating the cosmic landscape. But as space expanded, matter became spread thin, its gravitational grip weakening. Dark energy, by contrast, remained constant, or perhaps even increased in influence, allowing it to overtake matter and dictate the expansion. This shift was not sudden but gradual, unfolding over billions of years until its effects became undeniable. Every photon traveling from the early universe carries within it the story of expansion, acceleration, and the mysterious force influencing it. By analyzing these ancient signals, scientists piece together a timeline of cosmic evolution, identifying the hidden mechanisms that govern the universe. The early cosmos, once chaotic and scorching, has become a vast and tranquil expanse shaped by forces we are only beginning to understand. And within its earliest moments lies the key to the mystery driving the universe outward, a riddle encoded in the silent language of light and space. The fabric of space is often imagined as an empty stage, a silent platform on which galaxies drift and stars ignite. But modern physics paints a very different picture, one in which space is not a passive backdrop but an active participant in the unfolding story of the universe. To understand the engine behind cosmic expansion, we must first confront a striking idea. Space is not nothing. It has structure, tension, and energy hidden beneath its seemingly quiet surface. What appears empty is, in truth, a restless ocean of quantum activity, where invisible fluctuations shape the destiny of galaxies billions of light-years apart. This realization forces us to rethink everything we believe about nothingness itself. Quantum field theory reveals that every point in space is alive with fluctuations, particles flickering into existence and disappearing in the span of unimaginably small moments. These fluctuations are not optional decorations on the universe, they are built into the foundation of reality. Even in perfect vacuum, fields hum with activity, their energy contributing to what physicists call the vacuum energy of space. This vacuum energy may be the key to understanding the mysterious force that drives the universe to expand faster and faster. The idea that emptiness could wield such power feels counterintuitive, even unsettling, yet it emerges naturally from the mathematics of quantum theory. If empty space has energy, then the expansion of the universe becomes more than a simple consequence of initial conditions. It becomes a dynamic process fueled by the restless behavior of the vacuum. As space grows, new space is created, and with it comes new vacuum energy. This creates a feedback loop that may explain why expansion accelerates. The larger the universe becomes, the more vacuum energy it contains, and the more forcefully it expands. Observations from distant galaxies appear to support this model, suggesting that the vacuum is not merely a passive presence but the most influential component of cosmic evolution. Yet the exact nature of vacuum energy remains deeply mysterious. Quantum calculations predict values that are wildly larger than anything observed, exceeding the measured amount of dark energy by factors so enormous that they defy comprehension. This discrepancy is one of the greatest unsolved problems in theoretical physics. Either our understanding of quantum vacuum is incomplete, or the universe contains hidden mechanisms that cancel out most of the vacuum energy while leaving just enough to drive cosmic acceleration. This puzzle, known as the cosmological constant problem, sits at the crossroads of cosmology and quantum mechanics, pointing toward a deeper layer of reality that has yet to be uncovered. One possible explanation is that vacuum energy is not fixed but dynamic, changing slowly over time. In this view, dark energy is not a constant property of space but the effect of a field that permeates the universe and evolves gradually. As this field changes, its energy density shifts, influencing the rate of expansion. This idea suggests that dark energy might have been weaker in the past and only became dominant recently. It also opens the door to the possibility that the future expansion of the universe could shift dramatically depending on how the field behaves. The universe could accelerate forever, stabilize, or even reverse into contraction, depending on the fate of this hidden field. Another possibility is that our understanding of gravity itself is incomplete. Gravity may behave differently on cosmic scales than it does near stars or planets. Modified gravity theories propose that the accelerated expansion might arise not from a mysterious energy but from the way spacetime responds to matter on enormous scales. These theories attempt to rewrite the rules of gravity while still preserving the remarkable accuracy of Einstein's equations in everyday contexts. But confirming such ideas requires observations far more precise than any before, stretching the limits of technology and imagination. Even more radical is the suggestion that vacuum energy reflects the influence of parallel universes or higher dimensional structures. According to some theories, our universe may be just one bubble in a vast multiverse, each with its own physical constants and vacuum energies. The value of dark energy in our universe may be a product of cosmic selection, a balance that allows galaxies, stars, and life to form. If the vacuum energy were much larger or smaller, the universe might expand too quickly or collapse too rapidly for any complexity to arise. This idea, though speculative, highlights the delicate balance that shapes the cosmos and the mysterious role vacuum energy plays in sustaining its structure. Despite these possibilities, the vacuum remains stubbornly elusive. We can observe its effects but not its essence. We see galaxies racing away, light stretching into redder wavelengths and cosmic structures drifting apart, but the underlying cause remains hidden beneath layers of mathematical abstraction and experimental limitation. The vacuum, in its quiet invisibility, may be the most powerful force in existence, shaping the fate of everything yet refusing to reveal its true nature. As researchers probe deeper into the structure of space, they develop increasingly sensitive instruments designed to detect subtle distortions, gravitational waves, and high-energy particles that might offer clues about vacuum energy. Space telescopes map the cosmic microwave background with extraordinary precision, revealing tiny variations that hint at the earliest interactions between matter and vacuum. Ground-based observatories track the motion of galaxies across billions of light-years, measuring the expansion history of the universe with growing accuracy. Each new observation sharpens the mystery rather than resolving it, suggesting layers of reality that have yet to be explored. The true nature of the vacuum challenges philosophy as deeply as it challenges physics. The concept of nothingness collapses under scrutiny, replaced by a richer, more complex understanding of the universe's foundation. What we call empty space is actually a dynamic entity, a reservoir of energy, a driver of cosmic evolution. It is the quiet stage on which the universe unfolds, yet it shapes the plot more decisively than any visible actor. In confronting this strange truth, we confront the limits of human intuition. Space is not empty and nothingness is not nothing. The vacuum breathes with energy, tension, and purpose, influencing galaxies and governing the universe's expansion. And as we peer deeper into its invisible depths, we are reminded that the greatest mysteries are often hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of reality. Gravity is often imagined as a simple force, a familiar pull that keeps our feet on the ground and planets in their orbits. But on the scale of the cosmos, gravity becomes something far stranger, a sculptor of structure and a shaper of destiny. It is the quiet architect of the universe, pulling matter together to form galaxies, stars, and clusters. Yet when measured against the accelerating expansion of space, gravity appears to be losing a cosmic tug-of-war. Somewhere in the universe, a counterforce is overpowering gravity's ancient influence, pushing galaxies apart with increasing speed. To understand this conflict, we must examine gravity not as a static force, but as a dynamic phenomenon woven into the curvature of spacetime itself. Einstein's theory of general relativity revolutionized our understanding of gravity, revealing it not as a mechanical pull, but as the bending of spacetime caused by mass and energy. Massive objects create indentations in the fabric of space, and smaller objects follow the curves of these distortions. In this elegant vision, gravity becomes a geometric effect, an expression of the shape of the universe. But this framework also implies something profound. If spacetime itself expands, gravity must adapt. It must stretch along with the fabric, adjusting its influence across ever-increasing distances. The tension between gravity's inward pull and the outward expansion of space is at the heart of the mystery that defines the modern cosmos. As astronomers map galaxies across billions of light-years, they see a pattern that seems to defy gravity's expectations. Galaxies are not slowing down as they move apart. Instead, they are accelerating like runners pushed by an invisible wind. This acceleration cannot be explained by matter alone, not even by dark matter, which enhances gravity on galactic scales. The only explanation is that something with a repulsive influence exists, something that counteracts gravity on the largest scales. This repulsive component, which we call dark energy, behaves as if it exerts negative pressure, stretching the universe outward rather than pulling it inward. Gravity and dark energy thus become opposing players in a cosmic struggle, each shaping the universe in contrasting ways. To appreciate the magnitude of gravity's challenge, imagine a universe filled with billions of galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars. Each star generates its own gravitational influence, and each galaxy's collective mass contributes to a vast network of gravitational interactions. Gravity pulls clusters together, forms filaments of galaxies stretching across hundreds of millions of light-years, and shapes the web-like structure of the cosmic landscape. Yet despite this immense gravitational network, the expansion of the universe continues to accelerate. The implication is clear. Dark energy is unimaginably powerful, strong enough to overcome the collective gravity of everything in existence. This realization forces scientists to revisit the fundamental assumptions about gravity itself. What if gravity weakens over vast distances? What if it behaves differently in regions where matter is sparse? Modified gravity theories attempt to address these questions, proposing that gravity is not a universal constant but a phenomenon that changes depending on the scale. Some models suggest that gravity becomes less effective on cosmic distances, allowing dark energy or even the geometry of spacetime to dominate. Others propose that gravity may be influenced by hidden dimensions or undiscovered particles, altering the way it interacts with the fabric of the universe. These ideas are bold and challenging, but they arise from a simple truth. Gravity alone cannot explain what we observe. Even more compelling is the fact that general relativity, as successful as it is, cannot be reconciled with quantum mechanics, the theory governing the microscopic world. Somewhere between these two pillars of physics lies a deeper description of gravity, one that may finally explain cosmic acceleration. This unified theory, often referred to as quantum gravity, remains one of the greatest goals of modern physics. The behavior of the universe's expansion may serve as a crucial clue, pointing toward the hidden structure of spacetime and the unseen influences that shape it. Cosmologists study the interplay between gravity and dark energy by analyzing the growth of structure over billions of years. In the early universe, matter was dense and gravity strong, leading to rapid clumping and the formation of the first galaxies. As the universe expanded and matter thinned out, gravity's influence weakened, slowing the formation of new structures. Today, the expansion is so rapid that galaxies no longer grow closer but drift apart. The cosmic web itself is beginning to stretch, and over trillions of years, gravity will no longer be able to draw new galaxies together. The universe will gradually enter an era where dark energy dominates entirely, isolating galaxies and expanding space faster than gravity can resist. This transition reveals a delicate balance between the forces that shape the cosmos. Gravity governs the local universe, the scale of stars, planets, and galaxies, while dark energy governs the global universe, the scale of clusters and superclusters. On small scales, gravity remains supreme. On large scales, dark energy becomes the ruling force. These two realms coexist, each essential to the structure and evolution of the cosmos. To understand one without the other is to see only half the story. Only by examining their interplay can we glimpse the full picture of the universe's past and future. The philosophical implications are profound. Gravity shapes the visible universe, the structures we can observe directly. Dark energy shapes the invisible trajectory of the universe, the path it will take across cosmic time. Gravity builds, dark energy dissolves. Gravity unites, dark energy separates. Their conflict defines the fate of everything, whether galaxies will drift into eternal solitude or whether cosmic expansion will evolve into something even more dramatic. As scientists explore these ideas, they are driven by a mixture of curiosity and urgency. The universe is speaking through its expansion, through the light of distant galaxies, and through the curvature of spacetime. Gravity is no longer seen as a simple force but as a key to a deeper reality. And as we probe the mysteries behind the universe's accelerating expansion, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of a new understanding, one that may redefine the nature of gravity, space, and the unseen energy driving everything farther and farther into the unknown. The universe speaks softly, not in words, but in light that has traveled for billions of years to reach us. Every photon, every shift in wavelength, every faint smudge on a detector carries the memory of cosmic motion. To understand why the universe is accelerating, astronomers look not at what is near, but what is unimaginably far. They observe distant galaxies stretching across the darkness like suspended lanterns, and study how their light bends, fades, or reddens as space expands. These signals are fragile, as faint as whispers from another age, yet they hold the power to change our understanding of reality. Through them, we encounter not only the scale of the universe but the mysterious force pushing it apart. One of the most pivotal discoveries came from the study of Type Ia supernovae, stellar explosions so bright that they briefly outshine entire galaxies. These supernovae act like cosmic beacons, their luminosity so consistent that scientists use them as distance markers. When astronomers observed these explosions in faraway galaxies, they expected the light to follow predictable patterns, dimming in a way that matched a slowing universe. Instead, they found something startling. The supernovae were dimmer than expected, as if they were farther away than they should have been. Space had expanded more than anticipated during the journey of their light. It was a revelation that felt like a sudden twist in a story we thought we understood. The universe wasn't slowing, it was speeding up. This discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The instruments had been precise, the measurements careful, the calculations thorough. Yet the result pointed toward a new and unsettling conclusion. A mysterious energy permeated the cosmos, overpowering gravity and accelerating expansion. This invisible influence, soon labeled dark energy, became one of the most significant discoveries of the 20th century. But supernovae were only the beginning. Astronomers needed more evidence, more ways to test the universe's behavior across time and distance. So they turned to other cosmic messengers, each offering a different view of space's evolution. One such messenger is the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang. Its temperature fluctuations, mapped with extraordinary precision, reveal the universe at a time when it was only a few 100,000 years old. These fluctuations show how matter and energy were distributed in the early cosmos, offering clues to how the universe should expand. When scientists combined these ancient patterns with modern observations, they uncovered a consistent story. The universe behaved exactly as if a mysterious energy were pushing it outward. Different eras, different methods, different instruments, all pointing to the same invisible influence. Another source of evidence comes from the large-scale distribution of galaxies. The universe forms a cosmic web, a sprawling network of filaments and voids stretching across billions of light-years. The spacing between these structures contains information about how the universe expanded over time. By measuring these distances with surveys that map millions of galaxies, astronomers can reconstruct the history of cosmic growth. These measurements reveal patterns that match a universe driven by dark energy. The galaxies are spread farther apart than gravity alone can explain, and their clustering evolves in ways consistent with accelerated expansion. Gravitational lensing provides yet another piece of the puzzle. Massive objects bend the light that passes near them, acting like natural magnifying lenses in space. By studying how distant galaxies are distorted by intervening matter, astronomers can measure the distribution of both visible and dark matter. These distortions also reveal how quickly structures grow, offering clues about the balance between gravity and the force accelerating expansion. The lensing patterns are subtle, but they align with the same conclusion. The universe is expanding faster and faster under the influence of something unseen. Each method has its limitations, its uncertainties, and its challenges. Yet each points toward the same mystery. The unity of these observations gives dark energy its strength, not as a theory born from speculation, but as a conclusion drawn from the universe's own signals. Still, the nature of dark energy remains elusive. It does not clump, does not emit light, does not interact with matter in any familiar way. Its presence is known only from the way it stretches space itself. This creates a strange situation where scientists measure the effect of something they cannot detect directly, like observing ripples on water without seeing the wind that created them. The challenge of observing cosmic acceleration is made even more difficult by the faintness of the signals. Astronomers study galaxies so distant that their light left them before Earth even existed. They analyze photons stretched to the edge of detectability by billions of years of expansion. They build telescopes that hover above the atmosphere, free from distortion, and instruments cooled to near absolute zero to detect the faintest possible traces of ancient radiation. Each observation requires extraordinary precision, for even the smallest error could distort the interpretation of cosmic history. Modern observatories, from ground-based telescopes that scan enormous swaths of the sky to space telescopes that peer deep into cosmic time, are designed specifically to unravel the secret of accelerated expansion. They measure redshifts, chart large-scale structures, and detect subtle distortions in the fabric of space. The ambition behind these projects reflects the magnitude of the mystery they seek to resolve. Understanding dark energy is not simply a matter of collecting data, it is a quest to understand what reality itself is made of. And yet, for all the precision and effort, the universe still guards its secret. The more astronomers observe, the clearer it becomes that cosmic acceleration is real, measurable, undeniable. But what causes it remains obscured, like a presence felt but never seen. The tension between knowledge and ignorance fuels a sense of wonder and urgency. Every new observation sharpens our questions rather than answers them fully. In the end, the universe's expansion is a message written across the sky, encoded in light from the distant past. It invites humanity to look deeper, to build better instruments, to refine theories, and to expand imagination. The cosmos is not silent. It is telling a story of motion, tension, and mystery on the grandest scale. The more we listen, the more we realize that the accelerating universe is not just a scientific puzzle but a profound invitation to confront the unseen forces shaping reality itself. The storm had passed, but its echo still trembled in the air, as if the world itself needed time to remember what calm felt like. The landscape stretched in every direction, washed clean by the night's violence, glistening with a thin sheen of water that caught the new sunlight like scattered shards of glass. Yet beneath this deceptive serenity, a deeper tension simmered, an invisible thread pulling everything toward a moment of reckoning. It felt as though the land had been holding its breath for centuries, and now at last, that breath was beginning to release. In the distance, the old fortress, half ruin, half relic, rose like a wounded beast from the earth. Its stones were dark, scarred by battles long forgotten, its towers leaning under the weight of stories that had never been fully told. The wind slipped through its broken arches like a whisper, carrying fragments of voices from another age. Something had happened here, something that refused to die even as the world moved on. And now, as footsteps approached its shattered gate, it felt those memories stirring again, rising from the dust like restless spirits. The traveler slowed as he reached the threshold. He was weary, but there was determination in his gaze, a clarity sharpened not by certainty but by purpose. He knew he was stepping into a place where the past still lived, where every stone had been shaped by blood, ambition, and sacrifice. But the weight of history did not frighten him. If anything, it called to him, urging him deeper into the labyrinth of shadows that lay ahead. He crossed into the courtyard. The sky above was a pale gold, warming the stones, but the air here remained strangely cold. It was the kind of cold that didn't touch the skin, it seeped directly into the bones. The walls around him were tall and jagged, like ribs of a colossal skeleton. Between the fallen slabs and overgrown weeds, symbols were carved, ancient, deliberate, and precise. Some had been chiseled with reverence. Others had been carved with rage. He moved closer, brushing dirt from one of the symbols. The lines were sharp despite the centuries. They formed a spiral, intersected by a straight line, a sign he had seen before in fragments but never this clearly. It was older than the fortress itself. Older than any kingdom whose ruins lay scattered across these lands. And yet it appeared again and again, always in the places where myth and mystery overlapped. A mark not of a civilization but of an idea, one that had persisted long after its people had vanished. A distant rumble rolled across the fields. Not thunder. Something deeper. Something alive. The traveler looked up toward the highest tower still standing. Its windows were empty sockets, staring out over the world with hollow, unblinking eyes. A faint flicker of movement caught his attention near the top, gone in an instant, but real enough to send a ripple of unease through him. He tightened his grip on the strap of his satchel and ascended the worn stone staircase curling around the interior wall of the tower. The steps creaked under his weight, fragile with age. Dust floated in the air, disturbed for the first time in decades. Sunlight cut through the darkness in thin beams, illuminating motes that drifted like tiny golden ghosts. Higher and higher he climbed, until finally he emerged into the chamber at the tower's peak. The room was circular, its roof collapsed long ago, leaving only jagged remnants framing the sky. In the center stood a stone pedestal, cracked but intact. On it lay an object wrapped in rotted cloth. The traveler approached slowly, almost reverently. This was what he had been searching for, not the cloth itself but what it protected. He reached out and peeled it away, revealing a tablet made from a dark, almost metallic stone. Its surface was carved with lines so intricate they seemed to shift and move when viewed from different angles. But the most striking feature was the spiral symbol again, etched on the upper corner, identical to the one in the courtyard, only sharper, more deliberate. He traced the spiral with his finger. As he did, the wind suddenly swirled around the chamber, violent and abrupt, as if the tower itself had awakened. The sunlight dimmed. The stone beneath his hand faintly vibrated. And then the vibration became a hum, deep, resonant, ancient. He stepped back, heart pounding. The hum echoed through the tower, descending into the earth below, pulsing outward across the fields. It was not a sound meant for human ears. It was older than language, older than kingdoms, older than war. He watched as faint lines of light began to trace themselves across the surface of the tablet, forming patterns that spread outward, intersecting, converging, weaving themselves into shapes that felt both alien and strangely familiar. It was as if the tablet had been waiting for someone to touch it, waiting for someone to wake it. Outside, the rumble grew louder. The traveler turned to the window. Far below, the ground trembled as cracks appeared in the soil, glowing faintly with the same light that pulsed across the tablet. The fortress, silent for centuries, now shook as if caught between two worlds. He understood now. The stories he had dismissed as legends were not exaggerations, they were warnings. The spiral symbol was not a mark of creation or destruction. It was a key. And this fortress was not a ruin. It was a lock. The wind roared through the tower. The tablet shone brighter, flooding the chamber with blinding light. The traveler shielded his eyes, but he did not run. He had come too far to turn back now. The truth was unfolding before him, terrible, magnificent, irreversible. And in that moment, as the earth itself seemed to awaken beneath him, he realized that history was not a line moving forward. It was a circle, a spiral, always returning to its beginning. And now the beginning had returned. The ground vibrated beneath his feet, a deep and ancient tremor that seemed to rise from the very marrow of the earth. The traveler steadied himself against the crumbling wall of the tower as the light from the tablet pulsed like a heartbeat, slow at first, then faster, brighter, more insistent. Outside, dark clouds gathered across the horizon even though moments ago the sky had been clear. They moved unnaturally, not drifting but converging, as if drawn toward the very place where he now stood. It was as though the world recognized what had been awakened and was rearranging itself in response. He forced himself to breathe steadily. The air had changed. Every inhale felt heavier, charged with an invisible energy that wrapped itself around him like a tightening coil. He turned back to the tablet slowly, his eyes adjusting to the shifting patterns of light that danced across its surface. They no longer seemed like carvings but like living veins, channeling something powerful and restless. The spiral symbol at the top glowed brightest of all, its lines sharp, precise, vibrating with purpose. Without meaning to, he whispered into the empty chamber, asking a question he wasn't sure he wanted answered. What did they leave behind? The tower responded with silence. But the earth did not. Another tremor rolled beneath him, stronger this time, and dust rained down from the broken edges of the roof. The sky outside had dimmed further. It was not night, but the daylight had taken on a strange metallic hue, as if the sun itself was watching cautiously from behind a veil. He knew he needed to descend, to understand what was happening beyond these walls. Leaving the tablet felt wrong, as though its presence now watched him with a silent expectation, but he turned away nevertheless and began his descent down the winding staircase. The vibrating stone steps made each movement uncertain, but he continued downward, the air growing colder with every turn. When he emerged into the courtyard, the transformation unfolding around him struck with full force. The cracks in the earth had widened dramatically, forming jagged pathways that radiated outward from the base of the tower. Fiery light glowed faintly within them, not flames but something more ethereal, something that resembled molten memory rather than molten rock. Shapes flickered within the glow, shadow-like but not quite shadows, moving with unsettling intent. He could feel them watching him though they had no eyes. Wind whipped violently through the courtyard, circling him, pulling at his clothes, at his hair, at the very thoughts in his mind. He pushed forward, moving toward the large archway that opened into what had once been the great hall. Vines clung to the arch, their dry leaves rustling with a sound that felt almost like whispering. As he stepped beneath it, the temperature dropped so suddenly that his breath formed a cloud in the air. Inside, the hall was darker than he expected. The ceiling had partially collapsed, allowing fractured beams of the strange metallic daylight to cut through the shadows and stark triangular shapes. The floor was littered with debris, broken pillars, shattered pottery, remnants of banners whose colors had long faded. But the traveler's eyes were drawn not to the ruin but to the carvings that covered the remaining intact walls. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, of spirals. Each one slightly different, as if crafted by many hands across many generations, yet all sharing the same central design. Some spirals were small, no larger than a coin, others stretched across entire plains of stone. Between them were figures, tall, elongated, their features abstract but filled with a kind of purposeful grace. They were shown standing in circles, touching the spirals, raising their hands toward the sky, or descending into the ground itself. Interwoven with these figures were scenes of storms, of light descending from the heavens, of cities uprooted by forces that seemed not divine but primal. And then, in one corner, partially obscured by rubble, the traveler saw something that made his heart stall. A depiction of a tower, this tower, surrounded by spirals and beams of light. At its summit stood a figure holding a tablet identical to the one he had just touched. The traveler knelt, brushing debris aside to reveal more of the image. The figure was not triumphant. It was bracing itself, leaning backward as if resisting something powerful. Around it, the spirals converged in a violent vortex. The image conveyed struggle, not victory. Containment, not release. He whispered again, but this time the question trembled with dread. Was the tablet meant to be sealed? The hall answered, not with words, but with a sudden rush of wind that surged from the cracks in the floor, swirling up toward the open segments of the roof. It howled through the ruins with a pitch that felt almost like a cry. The traveler staggered backward, shielding his face as dust and loose fragments spiraled upward. The glow beneath the earth intensified, casting eerie shadows across the walls, illuminating the spirals in a flickering dance of light. Then the wind stopped. The glow sank back into the cracks. Silence fell heavy and absolute. He stood in the stillness, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Whatever force had responded was not random. It was aware. This place, the fortress, the tower, the tablet, had been built as part of something larger, something ancient and deliberate. A boundary, a barrier, a warning. He looked back toward the courtyard, where the sky seemed to pulse with an unnatural shimmer. He felt the weight of the moment settle upon him like a mantle. The people who carved these walls had understood the danger. They had tried to bind it, to contain it, to bury it beneath years of architecture and myth. And now, because he had awoken the tablet, that ancient force was stirring again. He stepped outside. The horizon had changed. In the distance, the outline of the hills was distorted, warping in waves as though heat rose from them, though the air was cold enough to bite. Overhead, clouds churned faster, drawn toward a central point above the fortress. Lightning flickered silently within them, veins of white stretching across the darkened canopy. He knew the world would not remain as it was. Something had been set in motion, something unstoppable. But he also knew one thing with absolute clarity. He had not come here by accident. The tablet had not awakened by chance. The spirals were not merely symbols. They were coordinates, instructions, a map, a prophecy. And he was now part of it. The traveler looked back at the tower one last time, feeling the hum of the tablet vibrating through the ground beneath him. The wind picked up again, but this time it did not howl. It whispered, soft, familiar, ancient, as if calling him forward. He steadied himself, set his jaw, and stepped toward the shifting horizon. The reckoning had begun. The world beyond the fortress felt strangely hollow, as if sound itself had withdrawn in anticipation of something immense. Each step the traveler took echoed faintly across the deadened landscape, though the ground was not stone but dirt and dry grass. The silence was unnatural, too complete, too absolute, like the pause before a storm that has been building for centuries. He sensed the air stretching thin as though reality were holding its breath. The hills ahead, once familiar in their gentle rise and fall, now seemed distorted by an invisible pressure. Their outlines shimmered in waves, bending slightly with each pulse of the strange energy emanating from the awakened tablet. It was not enough to disorient him, but it unsettled him in a way few things ever had. The distortion felt alive, shifting subtly in response to his movements, not unlike an eye adjusting its focus on a distant subject. He kept walking, guided by instinct more than reason. The spirals carved throughout the fortress still burned in his mind like afterimages, and though he tried to resist the idea, he knew they were pulling him forward. There was a direction encoded in those patterns, one he did not fully understand but felt compelled to follow. Every step made the air grow colder, the wind more erratic, swirling around him in unpredictable bursts that vanished as quickly as they came. When he reached the crest of the first hill, the landscape below revealed something he had not expected. What should have been a quiet valley now bore the marks of upheaval. Deep fissures cut across the earth in branching lines that converged at impossible angles. Some glowed faintly with that same molten memory light he had seen beneath the fortress. Others were dark, bottomless, stretching into depths that swallowed all illumination. Trees near the fissures leaned unnaturally, their trunks twisted by the pressure of unseen forces. Even the air above the valley seemed to ripple with tension, like heat rising from desert sand. He descended slowly, feeling the ground shift beneath him. The soil vibrated in small, pulsing rhythms, forming patterns that were too uniform to be natural. It reminded him disturbingly of a heartbeat, steady, deliberate, ancient. He knelt, pressing his palm against the trembling earth. The sensation that radiated upward felt almost like communication, as if the land itself was trying to speak through vibrations and tremors. But its language was too old, too deep, too vast for him to comprehend. A gust of cold wind shot past him, carrying the faint smell of something metallic, sharp, and bitter. It stung his eyes and forced him to look up. The sky had darkened further, thick with roiling clouds that spiraled toward a single point high above the valley. The movement was slow but unmistakable, a celestial vortex forming in direct response to the awakening beneath the earth. Lightning flashed within the clouds, silent and unervingly precise, branching in symmetrical patterns that mirrored the symbols carved throughout the tower walls. He began walking again, his eyes fixed on the center of the valley. There, rising like an ancient monolith from the fractured earth, stood a stone pillar he did not remember seeing in any chart or legend. It was tall, narrow, and carved with spirals just like those in the fortress, but these spirals were far more elaborate, interwoven with symbols he had never encountered. The pillar pulsed with a faint luminescence, its surface shifting in slow, hypnotic waves. He felt drawn toward it, not by curiosity but by an instinct that felt older than his own memory. As he approached, the faint humming he had sensed since leaving the tower grew louder. It was no longer just a vibration beneath his feet. It resonated through his chest, through his bones, through his thoughts. The pillar was calling to something inside him, something the awakening tablet had stirred. Then he noticed the markings on the ground surrounding the stone, a vast circular pattern etched into the earth, nearly invisible from a distance. Spirals radiated outward from the pillar like the petals of a colossal flower. Some lines were fresh, carved by forces not long ago. Others were ancient, weathered by time but still intact. The entire valley, he realized, was part of a design, a massive construct spanning miles, hidden in plain sight until the awakening began. He stepped into the circle cautiously. The moment his foot crossed the boundary of the outermost spiral, the humming deepened in pitch. The ground trembled beneath him, not violently but with purpose, as if acknowledging his presence. He felt a tingling sensation in his fingertips, growing stronger with every step he took toward the pillar. The air thickened, pressing against him from all sides, heavy with anticipation. When he finally reached the base of the monolith, the symbols on its surface brightened. Their shifting patterns accelerated, flowing like currents of liquid light. He raised his hand hesitantly, and as his fingers brushed the stone, the ground convulsed, not enough to throw him off balance, but enough to send a jolt of energy shooting through him. Images flashed behind his eyes, too fast to decipher. Spirals, storms, towers, stars collapsing inward, ancient figures raising their hands in unison, worlds bending and breaking. He staggered back, gasping, his pulse racing. The pillar dimmed slightly as though retreating after revealing too much. But the images lingered in his mind, their afterglow searing into his thoughts. What he saw was not random. It was memory, memory of the stone, of the valley, of the ancient hands that carved these patterns. It was a warning. He looked up as another quake rippled across the valley. The fissures widened, releasing bursts of light that flickered across the cracked earth. The vortex in the sky tightened, swirling faster, its silent lightning forming geometric shapes that no storm could ever produce naturally. He felt the pressure within the air pushing downward, as if the sky itself were descending. The realization struck him with sudden clarity. He was standing inside the first lock. The fortress had been one boundary. This valley was another. And the tablet he had awakened was the key that had begun to unseal them. The ancient builders had not carved spirals for beauty. They had built a prison. A prison for something capable of bending the sky, splitting the earth, and rewriting reality itself. He stepped away from the pillar slowly, his senses sharpened by a rising dread. The ground continued to tremble. The air continued to press. And the sky, now a swirling eye of darkness and light, continued to narrow its focus upon the valley. He knew what he had to do. He had to find the next lock, before something unimaginably powerful found its way out. The path from the valley led him upward, along a series of jagged ridges that cut across the horizon like the spines of some sleeping giant. Each step was a struggle against gravity and the pull of exhaustion that gnawed at his body, yet he moved steadily, driven by something deeper than reason. The spirals he had seen at the fortress, the glowing fissures in the valley, the pulsating pillar, they had all aligned to create a path, a trail of cosmic breadcrumbs guiding him toward the next revelation. Each element he encountered felt deliberate, orchestrated by intelligence older than time itself, yet his mind struggled to comprehend its scale. The air grew thinner, colder, and tinged with the metallic scent that had accompanied the valley's tremors. Clouds swirled overhead in irregular patterns, twisting unnaturally as if aware of his movement. Lightning flickered silently across their edges, illuminating faint, spiral-shaped reflections on the distant peaks. With each flash, the ridges appeared to shift slightly, altering his perception of distance and orientation. It was as if the mountains themselves were alive, responding to the presence of the tablet he carried and the energy it had unleashed. He paused briefly on a narrow ledge, looking down at the valley below. The fissures had widened further, revealing deep channels that glowed faintly like rivers of molten memory. The pillar's light pulsed rhythmically, a silent heartbeat that echoed through the hills. The vortex above the valley had tightened, a spinning eye of energy whose pull seemed to extend far beyond the valley floor. He realized then that the forces he was encountering were not localized. They were spreading outward, subtly reshaping the landscape, bending space in ways that defied conventional understanding. The awakening had consequences, and those consequences were expanding like ripples across the fabric of reality. He resumed his climb, careful to avoid loose rocks and unstable outcrops. The path narrowed, forcing him to press close to the cliff face. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the stone, shifting with the changing angle of light, giving the impression that the rocks themselves were watching him. Each step forward felt like a negotiation with the mountain, a silent acknowledgement of forces far greater than himself. It was a humbling experience, as though he were not merely traversing a physical landscape but entering a domain shaped by a consciousness older than humanity, older than the world itself. At the summit of the first ridge, the view opened into a plateau that defied expectation. In the distance he could see a structure unlike anything he had encountered so far. A massive stone circle partially submerged in the earth, etched with spirals and other intricate symbols. Its size was staggering, spanning hundreds of meters across, and it pulsed faintly with the same energy signature he had traced from the fortress to the valley. The plateau seemed unnaturally still, as if time itself had slowed here to accommodate the presence of something immense. The traveler instinctively knew that this was the next lock, the next key point in the ancient containment network. As he approached the stone circle, the wind intensified, whipping across the plateau in chaotic currents. Dust and loose pebbles swirled around him, catching the light in brief flashes. The spirals etched into the stone shimmered faintly, each one resonating with a subtle vibration that he could feel through his feet and bones. The energy was not threatening, at least not yet, but it was potent, alive with a presence that was both alien and intimately connected to the world around him. The realization struck him. This circle was not merely a marker. It was a control mechanism, designed to contain or manipulate a force that operated on scales beyond ordinary comprehension. He knelt to examine one of the larger spirals, tracing its intricate lines with his finger. As he did, the faint hum grew louder, resonating through the plateau. He felt a sudden shift in the air pressure, a tightening around his chest and head that suggested that the energy was aware of his actions. He withdrew his hand, uncertain if touching the spiral had been a trigger, but the vibration persisted, steady and insistent. This was no ordinary magic or superstition. It was a system of control, a lattice of energy and matter intertwined across time, space, and consciousness. The sky above continued to swirl. The vortex that had formed over the valley had begun to extend outward, its edges stretching toward the plateau. Faint arcs of light branched from it like fingers, grazing the earth below without touching it. Each arc seemed purposeful, directed, probing the environment for alignment, perhaps even for understanding. The traveler instinctively stepped back, feeling the energy's weight press upon him. The tablet in his satchel vibrated faintly, responding to the distant forces with its own silent pulse. He realized that the artifacts, the structures, and the energy were all interconnected, forming a network designed to contain something of unimaginable power and consequence. He rose slowly, eyes scanning the plateau for the central point of the circle. In its center stood a pedestal, dark stone carved with spirals that were even more intricate than the others. Unlike the tablet or the pillar, this stone seemed solid, yet it pulsed with a deep, slow rhythm like the heartbeat of the world itself. He approached it cautiously, aware that any misstep might awaken forces he could neither predict nor control. The hum beneath his feet synchronized with the pedestal's pulse, and he felt a resonance in his chest that was nearly physical, a sensation of connection, of belonging, and of alarm all at once. As he touched the pedestal, the vibrations surged through his body. Images flickered in his mind. Spirals expanding across landscapes, storm clouds bending toward invisible centers, massive structures rising and falling in rhythm with forces he could barely comprehend. Time seemed to dilate around him. He understood, even if only partially, that the entire network, the fortress, the valley, the plateau, the spirals, was a containment system designed to restrain something ancient and inexorable. Its influence was not merely mechanical, it was conscious, reactive, and adaptive. The traveler stepped back, breathing heavily. The energy of the plateau had not withdrawn, but it seemed to pause, observing, waiting. He realized with a mixture of awe and terror that the journey was far from over. The locks were only beginning to reveal their purpose. The spirals, the pedestals, the pillars, they were guides, warnings, and mechanisms all at once. And he, by awakening the first tablet, had become part of a story that had been unfolding for millennia, a narrative whose conclusion had yet to be written. Far off in the horizon, the mountains beyond the plateau began to shift in subtle ways. Light arcs from the distant vortex brushed their ridges, and faint echoes of vibration reached him, suggesting that the next point in the network had already begun to respond. The traveler knew what he must do. He must continue, ascend to the next lock, and understand the full scale of the ancient system. There could be no hesitation, for the forces he had awakened would not wait. They were patient but relentless. He tightened the strap of his satchel, adjusted his footing and set off toward the next ridge. Behind him, the plateau hummed in silent anticipation, as if acknowledging his resolve. Ahead, the mountains awaited, silent, jagged, and alive. The journey was far from over, and the traveler understood that the real test, the revelation of the full network, the confrontation with the force contained within, was still to come. The next ridge rose before him like a jagged spine, sharp and unyielding against the darkening sky. The wind whipped with renewed intensity, carrying dust and the faint metallic scent that had accompanied the valley and plateau, as if the land itself remembered the pulse of the ancient energy. Each gust tugged at his clothes and hair, yet he moved forward, stepping carefully over fractured rock and loose stone, feeling the vibration of the earth beneath him grow stronger with each step. The network of spirals and pedestals seemed to extend in concentric lines outward, threading across the terrain, connecting these ancient structures with invisible energy lines he could neither see nor measure, yet could feel pressing against his body and mind. He climbed higher, and with altitude came a strange clarity, a sensation that the wind was no longer merely air but a carrier of something older, a force shaped by intention. The mountain slopes around him twisted unnaturally, the ridgelines seeming to shift slightly, bending as though accommodating the awakening of the tablet he had carried from the fortress. Every rock, every fissure, and every glint of distant light suggested design, an intelligence encoded into the landscape itself. The patterns were subtle, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable once noticed. The traveler realized that the network was not simply constructed but alive, responsive, and patient, waiting for centuries until it was disturbed. At the top of the ridge, the air changed. It thickened, not in a suffocating way, but in a way that made every breath deliberate and aware. The horizon opened to a new plateau, broader than the previous one, with multiple stone circles partially submerged in the terrain. Each circle bore spirals and geometric carvings, their energy faintly pulsing like distant heartbeats. Lightning arced silently above in the sky, the clouds above twisting in a spiraling formation that mirrored the carvings below. He stepped carefully, aware that the slightest misstep could disrupt the energy flowing through the area, a force that was responsive to both motion and intent. As he moved closer to the largest of the stone circles, he noticed fissures running through the ground, similar to those in the valley but far larger and deeper, their glowing energy casting faint light on the surrounding rocks. They pulsed in time with the spirals, a synchronized rhythm that spoke of purpose and precision. The vibrations were subtle but insistent, resonating through his chest and legs. Each step toward the center of the circle heightened the intensity, the energy now pressing on him with a tangible weight. He could feel the connection between the tablet in his satchel and the plateau. It was almost magnetic, an invisible tether linking his movements to the network he had begun to awaken. At the center of the circle stood a pedestal, taller and more imposing than any he had encountered before. Its surface was black stone, etched with intricate spirals and symbols that seemed to move subtly under the influence of the wind and energy around him. As he approached, the hum beneath his feet rose into a resonant tone that thrummed through his entire body. He extended his hand, hesitant but compelled, and as his fingers brushed the stone, the vibrations intensified sharply. Images flashed across his mind with blinding speed, spirals radiating across landscapes, beams of light piercing through clouds, structures rising and collapsing in rhythmic succession, ancient figures raising their hands, all linked by networks of energy he could barely comprehend. The sudden influx of visions forced him to stagger back, his heart racing and his breath shallow. Each pulse of the pedestal carried with it a fragment of memory, perhaps not his own, perhaps not of human origin, but somehow accessible to him through the touch of the ancient system. The spirals were not merely symbols, they were instructions, coordinates, and warnings encoded into the fabric of the earth itself. He realized with a surge of awe that this network had been built to contain something beyond ordinary comprehension, a force that demanded both precision and respect. The energy was not malevolent in its awareness, but it was overwhelming, testing the resolve and understanding of anyone who dared to interact with it. He looked beyond the pedestal at the arrangement of the other stone circles. They formed a vast, interconnected lattice that spread across the plateau, connected by faint streams of luminescent energy emerging from fissures in the ground. The patterns were deliberate, almost mathematical in their precision, suggesting knowledge and understanding of forces that exceeded even the most advanced human theories of energy and matter. The realization struck him that the builders of this network had not been merely human or ordinary, they had operated on a scale and level of understanding that reached beyond time itself. A low rumble traveled through the plateau, beginning in the fissures and spreading outward like the waves of a vast underground ocean. The hum of the pedestal synchronized with the rumble, and the spirals etched into the stone began to glow brighter, their pulses accelerating. He sensed a response from the network, a recognition of his presence and of the awakening tablet. It was an acknowledgement and a warning, a communication that transcended words, yet conveyed a clear urgency. He was only at the beginning of understanding, and the forces contained within the network were stirring in response to his actions. He steadied himself, focusing on the pedestal, aware that every movement, every choice, could influence the delicate balance of energies around him. He could feel the vibrations intensifying, spreading across the plateau and through the distant ridges, as if the entire landscape was coming alive in response to the awakening. The spirals, the stone circles, the fissures, and even the winds themselves were all part of a single, enormous system designed to channel, contain, and monitor a force that had existed for millennia. As he prepared to continue toward the next ridge and the subsequent lock in the network, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The ancient builders had created this system for a reason, and now, after centuries of dormancy, he had unwittingly begun to activate it. There was no turning back. The journey ahead would be more perilous, the energy more intense, and the forces at play more complex. He knew that each step forward would demand not only courage but understanding, and that misjudgment could have consequences far beyond his own life. He took one last look at the plateau, at the lattice of stone circles and the pulsing energy that stretched across the land, and took a deep breath. The path to the next lock was clear, illuminated not by sunlight but by the glow of an ancient system awakening after centuries of slumber. He stepped forward, moving toward the next ridge, toward the next challenge, knowing that the journey had only begun and that the forces he was confronting were far greater than anything he had ever imagined. The next ridge loomed before him like a jagged wall, its shadow stretching across the plateau in sharp angles that seemed almost deliberate, as if the mountain itself were a sentinel guarding the way forward. The wind had shifted, carrying a colder bite and a metallic tang that made the traveler's senses heighten, every nerve alert. Dust and loose stones skittered across the rocky slope, driven by invisible currents, and the hum of the tablet in his satchel grew stronger, resonating in time with the pulses of energy that had begun to radiate from the stone circles below. He knew this ridge would not be a simple climb. The energy had intensified with every lock he encountered, and he could feel its pressure stretching outward, shaping the landscape itself to accommodate the awakening. The climb was treacherous, the stones loose underfoot, and the steep incline forced him to use his hands to pull himself upward. With every grasp of rock, he could feel vibrations transferring through the mountain into his body, subtle yet insistent. They were not random, not natural. The energy in the ridge responded to his movements, almost as if it were aware, observing, testing him. The spirals he had traced in his mind from the fortress to the valley and the plateau now seemed to overlay the terrain itself, like a hidden map revealed only to those attuned to the forces at play. Each step brought him closer not just to the physical peak but to a deeper understanding of the network he had begun to awaken. At a narrow ledge halfway up, he paused, surveying the land below. The plateau stretched like a great sea of stone and spirals, the glowing fissures cutting across it like veins of light. From this vantage point, the complexity of the network became evident. The stone circles were interconnected not merely by geometry but by energy that radiated across the terrain, subtly influencing even the distant winds and the patterns of clouds above. The traveler felt a strange exhilaration tempered by dread. He understood now that the network was not passive. It was dynamic, adaptive, a living system designed to contain forces that could reshape the very fabric of the world. He resumed his ascent, the incline steepening and forcing him to cling to jagged outcrops. The wind howled, carrying whispers that he could almost, but not entirely, comprehend. The sounds were layered, a mixture of echoes from the plateau below and subtle vibrations that seemed embedded in the rocks themselves. Every gust pressed against him with the weight of history, of intention, of consciousness older than any human memory. He realized with a jolt that the network had been designed not just as a physical containment system but as a test. Those who approached it would be measured by endurance, courage, and perception, and only the ones who could withstand its trials might reach the heart of its purpose. The summit of the ridge opened onto a narrow plateau that sloped down to another valley. This valley was different from the first, more expansive, with larger fissures branching in patterns that were both geometric and chaotic. The energy here pulsed stronger, visible in faint glows beneath the cracks, and the air vibrated with a low hum that seemed to synchronize with the tablet. In the distance, he could see a massive structure partially buried in the earth, a series of concentric stone rings forming a labyrinth, spirals carved deep into every surface. It radiated an authority, a silent command over the land surrounding it. He understood that this was the next lock, the next crucial point in the containment network. As he descended the ridge toward the labyrinth, he felt the pressure of the energy increase. The hum beneath his feet grew louder, more insistent, and each step seemed to pull him into a rhythm dictated by the spirals themselves. The air grew thick, almost tangible, pressing against his chest, constricting with a weight that was not entirely physical. The sky above had darkened further, the clouds now forming spiraling vortices that mirrored the carvings on the stones below. Faint arcs of silent lightning flickered between the clouds and the fissures, casting brief, stark light on the labyrinth ahead, highlighting its enormity and complexity. He stepped into the first of the concentric rings. The vibrations of the ground intensified immediately, responding to his presence. The carvings in the stone walls glowed faintly, a rhythmic pattern that pulsed in sync with the tablet in his satchel. As he progressed through the labyrinth, he noticed that the lines of the spirals formed subtle conduits, guiding the energy flow along specific paths. The labyrinth was not merely a barrier, it was a channel, a mechanism to regulate the power that had been trapped for centuries. Every turn, every step felt like a negotiation with forces older and wiser than himself, and he realized that any misstep could disrupt the delicate balance of the network. Deep within the labyrinth, he reached a central chamber where a pedestal rose from the floor. Its surface was darker, almost black, etched with intricate spirals that seemed to move under the influence of his presence. The hum here was deafening, vibrating through his body, resonating in every bone and nerve. He approached cautiously, extending a hand toward the stone. As his fingers brushed the surface, visions assaulted his mind, spirals of energy expanding across continents, storms forming and dissipating in perfect synchronization, ancient figures guiding the flows with gestures both ritualistic and scientific. Time seemed to distort around him, moments stretching into hours, hours folding into seconds, and he understood that the pedestal was a central node, a focal point for the entire containment system. The energy surged, responding to the tablet, the pedestal, and his presence simultaneously. He staggered backward, gasping, feeling the weight of understanding pressing on him. The labyrinth, the ridge, the valley, the plateau, all were part of an immense design, a containment system created not merely to restrain but to harmonize. He realized that the spirals were a universal language, a code through which the ancient builders communicated with the forces they had bound. And now, by awakening the first tablet, he had become part of that code, an unintentional participant in a process that had been waiting for centuries to resume. He steadied himself, taking deep breaths as the hum began to recede slightly, allowing him a moment of clarity. Beyond the chamber, he could see the path leading to the next ridge, and in the distance, another network of stone structures pulsed faintly, glowing in time with the tablet. The journey was far from over. Each lock was a new challenge, a test of endurance and understanding. And each step forward would bring him closer to the truth that the ancient network had been built to protect. A force of unimaginable power, restrained for millennia, now beginning to stir in response to his presence. He adjusted the satchel, bracing himself against the increasing pressure in the air, and stepped forward. The hum of the labyrinth seemed to follow him, guiding, warning, resonating. The next ridge awaited, towering against the horizon, dark and jagged, and he knew that the journey ahead would demand every ounce of strength, every shred of courage, and every fragment of understanding he could summon. Yet he also knew he could not stop. The network had begun to awaken, and whatever force it contained would not wait for hesitation or fear. The ridge before him rose jagged and uncompromising, its peaks slicing into the sky like the spines of some colossal, slumbering creature. The wind here was stronger, colder, and sharper, carrying with it an electric charge that seemed to vibrate in his bones. Every gust brought whispers of energy, faint murmurs that brushed the edges of his consciousness, urging him forward, warning him, beckoning him to step with care. The tablet in his satchel pulsed in response, a low, steady heartbeat syncing with the vibrations of the ridge. It was as if the land itself recognized his presence and the role he had begun to play in the awakening of forces long restrained. He began the climb slowly, each foot placed deliberately on uneven stone and fractured rock. Loose pebbles slid down the slopes beside him, carried by the wind, as if marking the boundaries of some invisible path. He could feel the hum of energy intensifying beneath his feet, a resonant vibration that grew in pitch and volume the higher he ascended. The spirals he had traced in the fortress, valley, and plateau now seemed to overlay the landscape itself, forming a guide that was not visible to the eye but palpable to the body. Each step forward was measured, deliberate, a negotiation with a force that was ancient, aware, and patient. Halfway up, the ridge narrowed sharply, forcing him to cling to jagged rock walls for balance. Below him, the valley stretched out, a labyrinth of fissures glowing faintly with molten energy, stone circles pulsing in harmony, and the distant vortex in the sky twisting and spiraling like a celestial eye. The network he had awakened was expanding its influence across the land, its pulse resonating not just through the tablet but through every rock, every plant, every breath of wind. He realized that this journey was not merely physical. It was a communion with something older than the mountains themselves, an intelligence woven into the very fabric of reality. He paused to catch his breath, feeling the full weight of the ridge pressing down. The vibrations beneath him were now unmistakably rhythmic, like a heartbeat spanning miles of stone and earth. He could feel the energy reaching out, probing, aware of his presence, responding to his choices. The spirals carved into stone throughout the network had been a guide, a warning, and now a test. Every movement he made seemed to influence the flow, the hum intensifying when he hesitated, relaxing when he pressed forward with purpose. The path itself was alive, and he was beginning to understand that he was as much a part of the system as it was of him. As he reached the crest of the ridge, the landscape beyond opened into a plateau that was unlike any he had encountered. Massive stone rings sprawled across its surface, partially buried, etched with intricate spirals and complex geometric designs. Fissures ran between them, glowing faintly with the same luminescent energy that had marked the valley and the lower plateau. The air was thick with vibration, resonating with the pulse of the tablet and the energy of the network. Lightning arced silently above, threading the spiraling clouds with eerie precision, illuminating the symbols below in stark flashes. The sheer scale and complexity of the plateau made him pause. It was clear that this was the next lock, the next node in the containment system he had begun to awaken. He descended carefully toward the center, the wind carrying whispers that seemed almost articulate, urging caution, whispering secrets that eluded understanding. The hum beneath his feet grew louder, vibrating in perfect synchronization with the tablet. As he stepped into the largest of the stone rings, he felt an immediate, palpable change. The energy was concentrated here, focused, almost sentient. The spirals on the stones began to glow more brightly, and the vibrations traveled upward, coursing through him in a rush that was exhilarating and terrifying at once. The plateau itself seemed alive, reacting to his presence with a deliberate intelligence. At the heart of the stone ring stood a pedestal, taller than any he had encountered before, carved with spirals so intricate they seemed to shift subtly with the wind and the ambient energy. He approached cautiously, extending his hand toward the stone, feeling the vibrations peak as his fingers made contact. Images flashed across his mind, spirals expanding across continents, storms forming and dissipating in perfect synchronization, ancient figures raising their hands to guide the forces, structures rising and collapsing, each motion precise and deliberate. Time seemed to dilate, stretching and folding around him, and he understood with dawning horror and awe that this pedestal was a central node, a focal point through which the containment network controlled the force it had restrained for millennia. The energy surged through him, resonating with the tablet and the network, flooding his senses with information far beyond human comprehension. The labyrinths of stone circles, the pedestals, the fissures. They were not merely safeguards but communication devices, channels for intelligence embedded into the earth itself. Every pulse carried purpose, a directive that could be felt rather than understood. The spirals were more than symbols. They were instructions, the language of containment, a code older than kingdoms, civilizations, even memory. By awakening the first tablet, he had inadvertently become part of that code, a variable in a system designed for balance, restraint, and oversight. He staggered back, his mind reeling under the pressure of the insights and images forced upon him. The hum of the plateau intensified, not aggressively but insistently, demanding that he comprehend his place in the unfolding narrative. He looked outward, across the plateau, noting the interconnections, the fissures, the stone rings, the pulsing nodes. It was a network of unimaginable scale, its architecture both physical and metaphysical, spanning valleys, ridges, and even the sky itself through the energy it projected. He realized that each lock, each node, was designed to guide, test, and if necessary restrain those who interacted with it. He was not just traversing the landscape. He was engaging in an ancient dialogue with forces that had been dormant for eons. Breathing heavily, he took a cautious step away from the pedestal, scanning the horizon for the next ridge. In the distance, faint light pulses indicated another node awakening in response to his movements. He understood with stark clarity, The network was dynamic, aware, adaptive. His journey was only beginning, and each step forward would draw him deeper into a system that measured endurance, perception, and understanding. Mistakes could have consequences far beyond the personal. They could destabilize the balance of energy and containment maintained for millennia. He tightened the strap of his satchel, adjusted his footing, and began the climb toward the next ridge. The hum of the plateau followed him, a guiding, insistent rhythm that both warned and reassured. The wind carried faint echoes of the network's consciousness, whispers of intent and instruction that hinted at the scale of what lay ahead. He stepped forward, knowing that the awakening he had begun would not wait. The forces he had stirred were patient but relentless, ancient yet perceptive, and the journey toward understanding and survival had only just begun. The next ridge rose like a jagged wall against the horizon, a barrier of stone and shadow that seemed to pierce the sky itself. The traveler paused at its base, feeling the vibrations in the ground grow more pronounced, pulsing in rhythm with the tablet in his satchel. The air had thickened further, each inhalation pressing against his lungs as though the ridge itself exhaled an invisible, powerful weight. Dust and loose stones skittered across the slope, moved by invisible currents, and faint arcs of energy shimmered between distant peaks, connecting nodes of the ancient network he had been tracing. The force he was awakening was vast, deliberate, and alive, and he understood that the climb ahead would demand not only strength but the clarity of mind to perceive the patterns embedded in the land itself. He began the ascent, careful to place each foot on secure rock, though the surface was fractured and unpredictable. The vibrations intensified with every step, resonating through his legs and torso, embedding themselves into his very awareness. The spirals he had observed in the fortress, valley, plateau, and previous ridge now seemed to overlay the ridge itself, faintly glowing in perception alone, guiding him along an invisible path. Every movement he made seemed to send ripples through the network, a subtle but undeniable feedback that both reassured and warned. The system was alive, and he was no longer merely an observer. He was a participant, his actions now intertwined with forces that had waited in silence for millennia. Halfway up the incline, he paused to survey the surrounding landscape. Below him, the plateau stretched out, dotted with glowing fissures and concentric stone circles that pulsed rhythmically. The distant vortex in the sky twisted and spiraled, arcs of lightning painting geometries that echoed the patterns of the spirals on the stones. The scale of the network had become apparent. It was not limited to one valley, one ridge, or even one plateau. It spanned mountains, valleys, and skies, a lattice of energy, memory, and containment. The traveler's mind reeled with the immensity of it, understanding that the network was designed not merely as a safeguard but as a living, reactive system, capable of adjusting to disturbance, observation, and intrusion. He pressed onward, the wind rising into a howl, pushing against him with a force that seemed to measure his resolve. The vibrations underfoot had become a full resonance, harmonizing with the hum of the tablet. The ridge narrowed sharply, forcing him to press close to the cliff face. Each step was a negotiation with the mountain itself, as if the very rock was conscious, testing his purpose and strength. Shadows shifted in the corners of his vision, edges bending and flickering, giving the impression that the ridge was alive, breathing, observing, and reacting to his ascent. The spirals etched throughout the network were not just symbols. They were instructions, a communication in a language older than humanity, and he was beginning to comprehend fragments of it through the sensations he could feel but not yet fully interpret. At the crest of the ridge, the view opened into another plateau, broader and higher than the last. Multiple stone circles sprawled across the surface, partially submerged and carved with spirals and geometric patterns more intricate than any he had seen. Fissures radiated between the stones, glowing faintly, pulsing in harmony with the tablet and the vibrations under his feet. The air was thick with energy, resonating in a way that made his chest tighten and his head buzz with intensity. Lightning arced silently in the spiraling clouds above, illuminating the carvings and revealing a lattice of interconnections that extended far beyond the immediate plateau. Every structure, every line, every pulse had purpose and intelligence embedded in it. He descended cautiously toward the central circle, feeling the weight of the energy increase with proximity. The hum beneath his feet became deafening, vibrating in perfect synchronization with the spirals etched into the stones. As he stepped into the circle, the entire plateau seemed to awaken. The carvings glowed brighter, pulses of energy coursing through the fissures and radiating outward. He felt the rhythm in his chest and limbs, the vibration syncing with the tablet and the pedestal at the center of the circle. It was as if he were becoming part of the network itself, his body and consciousness integrated into the mechanism built to contain and monitor the ancient force. At the heart of the circle stood a pedestal, taller and more imposing than any he had encountered. Its surface was black stone, etched with spirals and symbols that shimmered as if alive. He approached, extending a hand, and felt the vibrations surge violently, images flooding his mind in rapid succession. Spirals expanding across continents, storms forming and dissipating, structures rising and collapsing in perfect sequence, and ancient figures guiding the energy with precise gestures. Time seemed to stretch and fold around him. Each moment contained layers of perception, memory, and intent. The pedestal was a central node in a system of unimaginable scale, designed not only to contain but to harmonize the energies it restrained, a control mechanism that demanded understanding as well as respect. The energy surged through him, resonating with the tablet, the pedestal, and the surrounding network, embedding itself in his mind and body. The labyrinth of stone circles, the pedestals, and the fissures were channels for the flow of intelligence, not mere constructs. The spirals were instructions, codes, and warnings, a universal language of containment. He realized that by awakening the first tablet, he had become part of this system, an unintentional participant in a process that had waited in silent anticipation for millennia. The network measured endurance, perception, and intent, testing all who approached, and he was now under its scrutiny. He staggered back, breathing heavily, feeling the weight of insight pressing on him. The hum persisted, a low, steady resonance that pulsed through the plateau and beyond, connecting with distant ridges, valleys, and nodes. The energy was aware, deliberate, and unyielding. He looked to the horizon, spotting the next ridge where the faint glow of another node pulsed in response to his presence. The journey ahead would demand more, greater understanding, sharper focus, and unwavering courage. Mistakes here could resonate far beyond his personal fate, potentially destabilizing the balance that had been maintained for centuries. Steeling himself, he adjusted his satchel, braced against the increasing pressure of the air, and began the climb toward the next ridge. The hum followed him, a guiding rhythm, both warning and assurance, and the wind carried whispers of ancient intent, echoes of a consciousness older than mountains and memory. Each step drew him further into the network, deeper into the awakening that he had set in motion. He understood with chilling clarity, the forces he had stirred were patient, deliberate, and relentless. The journey was far from over, and every moment would test not only his endurance but his understanding of the vast, intricate system he had become a part of. The next ridge rose sharply against the swirling sky, jagged and forbidding. Beneath his feet, vibrations pulsed, resonating with the tablet in his satchel, each beat syncing with the energy network he had been tracing. The wind carried a metallic tang and faint whispers, urging caution and awareness. Every instinct told him this climb was more than physical. It demanded perception and alignment with forces far older than himself. Step by step he ascended, loose stones shifting beneath his weight. Shadows bent unnaturally along the cliff face, stretching and contracting as if alive. The spirals etched across the network, on valleys, plateaus, and ridges, now seemed to overlay the stone itself, guiding him subtly, revealing the language of containment in rhythm and resonance. He sensed the system observing him, testing endurance and comprehension, responding to hesitation or resolve. At the crest, a plateau unfolded, dotted with stone rings and glowing fissures, pulses harmonizing with the tablet. Lightning arced silently across spiraling clouds, briefly illuminating intricate carvings and interconnections that spanned the landscape. He approached a central pedestal, black stone etched with spirals, its vibrations surging as his hand neared. Images flooded his mind, energy spreading across continents, storms forming and collapsing, structures rising and falling in perfect sequence, figures manipulating forces with deliberate gestures. Time stretched and folded, every moment layered with perception. He staggered back, breathless, the hum persisting across ridges and valleys. The network was alive, adaptive, responsive. Beyond the plateau, another ridge pulsed faintly, a challenge awaiting him. The journey would demand endurance, insight, and courage. Every step now rippled through the network, integrating him into a system older and wiser than memory. The awakening had begun and he was part of it. The next ridge loomed, jagged and immense, casting shadows over the plateau below. Vibrations in the stone beneath him pulsed with a deep resonance, echoing through his bones and syncing with the tablet. The wind cut sharply, carrying whispers of awareness that brushed at his mind. The ridge was alive, watching, testing. Every step would be measured, every hesitation noted as he climbed higher into forces far older than memory. He ascended carefully, loose stones sliding underfoot. Shadows twisted along the cliff faces, shifting unnaturally, bending to the rhythm of the network. The spirals embedded across plateaus, valleys, and previous ridges guided him subtly, conveying warnings and instructions. He felt the system's presence, deliberate, intelligent, and unyielding. It demanded endurance, focus, and perception, teaching through motion and consequence. At the crest, a vast plateau stretched before him, dotted with glowing stone rings and fissures. The air vibrated, thick with energy pressing on his chest. Lightning traced the spirals in the clouds, illuminating the carvings etched into the stone, revealing the network's connections. Each pulse responded to his movements, each fissure to his presence. At the center of the largest ring, a pedestal rose, black and etched with spirals that shimmered faintly. He approached, hand outstretched, and the energy surged violently, flooding his body and mind. He saw the network's design, energy spreading in precise harmony, ancient figures guiding forces, time folding and layering around him. The network was alive, not merely a system of containment but a conscious intelligence. Each step he took now resonated across the plateau, ridges, and distant nodes. He had become part of it. The journey was far from over, yet every step forward integrated him deeper into the awakening. The final ridge before him loomed jagged and dark, a threshold beyond which the network's true power awaited. Vibrations pulsed beneath his feet, syncing with the tablet in his satchel. The air carried electricity and whispers, subtle but insistent, as if the ridge itself tested his resolve. Every instinct warned him. This climb demanded clarity, endurance, and awareness beyond the ordinary. He ascended cautiously, loose stones shifting, shadows bending and flickering unnaturally. The spirals across ridges, valleys, and plateaus aligned with his movements, guiding him subtly. The network watched, responsive to every hesitation and decision. The plateau ahead sprawled vast and intricate, glowing fissures running between stone rings, pedestals etched with spirals, all pulsing in harmony with the energy underfoot. He stepped into the central ring. The hum beneath him intensified, resonating with the tablet and the carvings around him. The plateau reacted, pulses strengthening, energy flowing in response to his presence. At the center, a pedestal of black stone rose, its spirals shimmering with power. As his hand touched it, vibrations surged violently through his body, images flooding his mind. Spirals expanding across continents, storms forming and collapsing, structures rising and falling in synchronized cycles. Time folded and stretched, layered with perception and understanding. He staggered back, gasping, overwhelmed by the network's intelligence. Every step now rippled across ridges, valleys, and distant nodes. The system was alive, adaptive, relentless. He was no longer merely a traveler. He was part of the network, a participant in forces older and wiser than human memory. The awakening had begun in earnest. Every motion, thought, and breath now contributed to the harmonization of energy, and he understood that the journey of comprehension and survival was only beginning.